Hey everyone, how's it going? I hope you're all doing great, that you had a good weekend and all that stuff, and are following the 3H's of the channel. In this video, it's all about encounters in the state of Wyoming, so if that sounds like something you're interested in, definitely pull up a stump with me, and let's jump into it. Thank you for watching. So this isn't an incredibly spooky story by any means, but it's what happened, so here it is. At the time, I was a senior in high school. I got invited on a camping trip with 3 girls and 4 dudes. I had the hots for one of the girls, so of course I had to go. I live in Wyoming, by the way. We go camping near the Snowy Mountains, which are a northern extension of the Colorado Rocky Mountains. The only town that's nearby is Centennial, Wyoming, an old town founded from the workers of the Transcontinental Railroad, but these days it has a population of maybe 70 tops. So this area that we were in is surrounded by a thick forest of lodgepole pines, random lakes, and all that kind of stuff spread throughout. It's not uncommon to come across abandoned cabins in the woods. In fact, it's quite common. In fact, it might be more common than you think. Many were so run down that the roofs had entirely collapsed. We set up camp near a rocky area, but we have a big dirt pit where we make the fire. So far, we're having a lot of fun. We're drinking and all that kind of stuff, and we dare the 2 girls to start making out. Everybody's giggling and laughing and carrying on. And then all of a sudden, one friend, a dude who I know kinda well, but not as well as the others, gets this look on his face, that really creeped out look. I say to him, "Man, calm down, everything's fine." Now I had never been out here and partied with this kid. His name was John. He was adopted. He was a little weird, but we took that as him just not being from here. He starts mumbling about stuff in the trees. He really starts freaking out. After we all quiet down, we actually do hear something moving around in the wilderness, but no one thinks much of it. There are tons of animals in this area, everything from chipmunks to moose to bears, etc. Like bro, it's Wyoming. Wild animals are everywhere in the forest. But he keeps acting sketchy, like really sketchy. In fact, he starts drawing circles or something in the dirt. We think, "Bro, what are you doing, John? You're being so weird." He runs to his car and grabs a shotgun. He starts pointing it at people and yelling random things. And we think, "Oh shit, we're gonna die." Everyone is calmly telling him to stop pointing the gun at people. It's scaring the hell out of us, and to calm the F down. And then there's another sound in the woods, a different sound. I can't even really describe it, but he immediately turns to it and starts chasing it. Me and 2 other guys start chasing after him with a lamp and an axe, but he has a head start on us. When we finally find him, he's normal. He's completely calm. He even looks calmer. We convince him to put down the gun and walk back to camp. At that point, he doesn't even need convincing. He actually gives us the gun and says that it's gone now. We're trying to figure out what the hell he was talking about. He kept saying that this big shadow thing was watching us from just beyond the firelight in the forest. He said it was over 8 feet tall and had rectangular eyes that glowed white. Now, none of us saw anything. We did hear something in the forest, but we blew it off as an animal. We have no idea what he's talking about. I don't even think there are any stories about anything like that in that area. Of course, when he comes back, we're all going to go to sleep not long after. He freaked us out, and we're not really in party mode any longer. Generally, the rest of the trip was completely uneventful. And originally, I had chalked it up to him being too drunk, but I had been at parties where he was at before, and he was around the same level, and he was the smiley, giggly type, laughing at everybody's jokes, being a fun guy and all that. But this time, he just completely lost it. And he still maintained for the entire rest of that year that there was something in the woods that was tall, skinny, shadow-like, and had rectangular eyes. That was the part that he always talked about. After high school, I never really heard tell of him, and I kind of wonder if he's still weird like that. I was camping with my sister and our horses at least 2 decades ago in Wyoming. The first night when we set up our camp, the horses were getting spooked in their makeshift pen, which was electric wires with stakes that we can set up very quickly. I went to check on them, and as I got near them, an awful smell hit me all of a sudden. On the rear of my horse was a sticky sap-like substance. There were no trees anywhere near the pen. There were flower petals stuck all over it. It was so odd because the plains that we rode through were bare of the lilac, yellow, and amber flowers that were stuck on her. I brushed them off, said goodnight to my sister, then we went to bed. In the middle of the night, I woke up to take a pee, so I grabbed my rifle and walked out of the tent. Before finding a nice tree to go behind, I checked on the horses, and they were unusually ecstatic. Both were pacing and breathing heavily, while saliva was dripping from their mouths. It wasn't any medical issue, but seemed like the behavior horses have when they're about to mate or are overly excited. I leave them and walk maybe 20 yards from the camp, when all of a sudden, it's that same smell from earlier, like a rotting, sweaty trash scent. Then I hear something quite large break brush another 20 feet or so from me. I draw my rifle and wait to hear it again, but nothing. I whistle 3 notes slowly to announce my presence and see if it will startle the coyote or whatever enough to make it leave. All of a sudden, it whistles the same melody but backwards and in a much deeper pitch. I'm starting to freak out, so I raise my rifle and I see a 7 to 8 foot tall silhouette emerge from the bush in front of me in the moonlight. It was pale and gray with long limbs. Short fur lines the outside of its shape, but I can't make out the face because the moon is at its back and in front of me. I fire a shot, but I think I missed, and in the brief second of the discharge of the flash, shows a gangly frame of what looks like a goat standing up. I fire one more shot and run to camp as I hear the horses neighing and squealing in an ecstatic frenzy. My sister is already out of her tent with her rifle as I get back and tell her what happened. She assures me it was a bear, but I have seen hundreds in my time living in Wyoming, and I know that it wasn't. We stay up until daybreak and head back to the farm as fast as we could. I know that she still doesn't believe me, but my grandmother, who was very keen even into her old age, knew I was being truthful. She is the one who told me of the creature or deity, Pan, and how animals go into manic ecstasy in his presence, and how he will adorn them with his essence and the gifts of Mother Nature. I truly think that he is who I experienced that night. I thought I'd share a story of my own. A little background. I live in Colorado but worked in Wyoming. So every weekend, I drove home, and for Monday, I had to make the 250-mile trip back up. I started work at 5 in the morning, so I was driving very early in the morning. I did this for about a year. The craziest thing I saw was wrecks. The worst one was one time I saw a guy's arm hanging on by just the skin. But then this happened. In early September of that year, about halfway there, just out of Denver, it begins to get very foggy. I can't see more than 2 lines of the road in front of me. The fog is so thick that it looks like you could physically touch it. There's not a whole lot I can do about that. I have to keep driving. I get out my phone to take a picture of the crazy fog to show my family next weekend, but my phone's dead. It was charging all night. There should be no reason for the battery to drain that fast. I didn't think anything of it. I continued driving. 30 minutes pass. I keep thinking that I should have passed another town by now. As I'm pondering this thought, my headlights begin to flicker. I start to panic, hoping that they don't go out because I'd be forced to stop. And then my truck shuts down. I'm shitting my pants because there's nowhere to pull off, and someone could easily hit my truck. I'm freaking out too because I have no phone. I realize I had a spare alternator in my truck because of a previous incident where a voltage regulator was blown and not the alternator. I get out of the truck, start to get to work, trying to bust ass. I take my belt off, getting my tools and lights ready, and I start hearing faint noises, sounding like a girl screaming. I ignore it. I chalk it off to my mind playing tricks on me because I'm already terrified. But I continue hearing it. It sounds far away, but not too far. I can't really see anything, so I just keep going. A car passes. I don't even think they noticed me, but it made me feel better for whatever reason, knowing that I'm not totally alone out here. I have the old alternator off, the new one in my hands, and then I hear a very loud, very close woman scream, yelling, "No." My body is literally trying to shut down. I keep trying to get my shit together. I end up dropping a ratchet that I had sitting on top of my radiator. I get under the truck to fetch it, and I feel very vulnerable to whatever was freaking me out. I get up, and just like an effing horror movie, a woman in a white nightgown is literally standing there, face to face with me. She's late 20s, early 30s. Skinny, brown hair, brown eyes, 5'5". I stagger back a step. My mind is drawing a blank. I wanted to scream or say something, but nothing would come out of my mouth. I'm hearing this screaming as if it's in my head. The woman's face is expressionless, and she is saying nothing. I manage to get a hold of myself, and the only thing I can think to do is run to my door and get inside my truck. I'm scared of this bitch, thinking that she's a witch or something, and I'm about to get effed up. I'm trying to tell myself if this is my time, it's my time, trying to accept this stuff. But by the time that I look again, the woman has disappeared. I sit in my truck, looking everywhere for the woman. I don't see her. At this point, I'm assuming that she's crawled under my truck. I don't know why, but I wasn't thinking rationally. It seems like an hour later, but probably actually only 10 minutes go by. I see headlights. I turn on and off my headlights, trying to flash them at the car, just hoping it would work. And I shit you not, my headlights turn on, but the car doesn't stop. I guess it's lucky that my dumbass didn't unplug the negative cable from the battery, but it gives me courage with those lights, so I jump out of the truck and look underneath. There's absolutely nothing there. I get the new alternator on. I forgot which plug goes to which, so I just said screw it and did what I think was right. There's 2 identical plugs on the back of the alternator. I'm not sure what would happen if you plugged the wrong one into the wrong plug. After I was done, I got back in the truck and it started fine. It was still foggy as all hell. I didn't hear or see anything else besides just fog. To this day, I still can't explain it, and no one but my family believes me, and they only believe me because we lived in a seriously haunted house for 15 years. I had the old alternator tested at AutoZone, and it came out good. I suspected whatever killed my truck was paranormal. 3 years later, I still daily drive the truck, but I don't work construction anymore. I still have that same battery and alternator. No problems. My mom thinks that it was a banshee and was scared shitless when I told her about this, because supposedly when you hear the scream, you die or something. Anyway, I hope somebody can read my story. It took forever for me to get the courage to type it out. The rest of my paranormal experiences have nothing to do with anything like this though, so this is it. So we were small game hunting in Wyoming when this happened. I had 2 friends with me, Joe, and Kyle. It was a slow day. All we managed to do was get a rabbit with the Beretta 22. Later on, my friend shoots a squirrel out of a tree. We start to leave when we see this girl just sitting on a tree stump, facing away from us. We apologize for firing a shot so near to her. We didn't even see her. She didn't say anything. In fact, after we said this to her, she still didn't move. We walked up closer to see if she's okay, and she's got a little blood on her shirt. Nothing alarming, but it's like what you'd get if a branch cut you up a little bit. I walk in front of her, and she just has this blank stare that looks straight through you, not at you. We offer to take her back to our camp, and without a word, she starts walking with us, still blank. We get to our tents and fire, and she sits again. It's almost night, so we tell her that we'll get her back to the nearby town tomorrow. My buddies share a tent, so she has her own. Mine's the smallest, so I sleep alone. I crawled out of my tent the next morning. There's stuff everywhere. Kyle's camera is smashed. All of our large rifles are missing, and the girl's tent stakes are broken in half, which is a feat in itself. The girl is totally gone. We're all fearing a bear attack. We send Joe to get our Jeep and go to the nearby town for the game warden. Me and Kyle begin searching the woods with the tiny 22 in case that she actually got taken by a bear. Not that the 22 was actually going to do anything, but we had nothing else. Our rifles were now missing. But there was no sign of this girl anywheres. We start to get off this trail onto a wet grassy area when we first find a satchel on the ground. I say, "Don't go that way," to Kyle as soon as he steps and slips on some grass. We eventually find the clearing that we were in yesterday when we found her. There was the smell of death and rot. We go up to the stump that she was sitting on. There's a dead possum, a squirrel, a rabbit, and even a deer torn in half. On the stump is a pile of blood and decaying innards, probably from the animals. We follow this small trail that are some sort of weird hooves to the bottom of a small hill where a beanie sits on a branch. I go to grab the beanie and examine it, but Kyle shouts, "There!" And all I see when I turn my head is antlers dart from the top of the hill next to a pine tree. We get to the top of the hill and Kyle is absolutely pale. He says whatever it was on its hind legs. I say, "Dude, it's just a deer. They do that all the time. I saw the antlers." But then I see the perspective of the pine tree to Kyle, and it would have had to have been quite a bit taller than he is, and he's 6'2". So we're officially spooked at this point. We decide to start heading back toward where our camp was, and the forest is dead silent, which of course means a predator is somewhere near. Kyle hasn't said a word. He just has his Bowie knife out. His eyes are darting all over the trees. And then a loud shriek fills the forest. It sounds like Joe, but I've never heard him scream. We run towards the direction that it came from. We're shouting, "Joe, we're over here. We're over here." We see Joe sprinting toward us so fast that he almost runs right past us. He's holding his arm. It's cut up, worse than the girl was earlier. He says that a large animal came up behind him and pushed him off the trail down a small hill into a thicket. He keeps rambling about how screwed up it looked, like an elk goat thing that was big enough to be a half-grown moose. Kyle says, "We saw it too." We basically say, "Well, screw the girl, we're out of here. We'll go to town and tell the game wardens there." By this point, it's getting dark again anyways. We start trying to find the trail again. My gun is out. And then I hear my voice, but I didn't say anything. My voice says, "Don't go that way." WTF. Kyle and Joe ask what I said, and then I tell them it wasn't me. I look sketchily behind us, and I see something behind a tree popping out at like 8 feet tall. Before my eyes even adjust, it dashes further into the trees, going from hind legs to a mad dash on all fours. I unload my .22, not even aiming. I spent an 8-round magazine in about a second. The reply was some sort of screech or laughter. It kind of sounded like a hyena. At that point, I know that my gun isn't going to do anything. We all sprint back to the path. I'm the out-of-shape one out of the group, but today, we're all at an even pace in a death sprint speed. I load a new magazine and we stop to catch our breath to guzzle water. I look up, and the girl is standing there, staring at us, leaning against a tree. She has the same blank stare, but now she has a weird crooked smile. Kyle's the first one to speak, voicing our WTFs and asking where she was, what happened to our camp and all that. The reply is a follow me wave, and she begins walking back toward the beast. We yell at her, no, don't go that way. But she continues. We don't move at all. After another couple of yards, she turns back. There's no crooked smile or blank stare, just pure rage in her expression. The look you might get in the middle of a fist fight when you're ready to do some damage. We start to walk away, and when I turn back, she hasn't moved an inch, but has the same face. Eventually, we reach the end of the trail where they put the map of the forest in a display case, but the display case is smashed and the map is gone. We get to the Jeep and just bail the F out of there. We contact the game wardens, and they say they'll send out a search party for the girl. Nothing's found, and the tents that we left were torn to bits. When they contacted us, they said they figured it was a grizzly bear. I gave up hunting and hiking for a year or two. Kyle, though, did go hunting in the same spot again many times, and he had no negative experiences, although he did go armed to the teeth at least the first couple times. The stump where we found her had no dead animals, and the forest wasn't silent. It was normal. He did mention, though, that one time when he was hunting, he ran into a doe with its neck broken at a weird angle, facing its tail, but there was no sign of any animals feeding on it, or hunters shooting it, which would have been quite illegal. I live in South Colorado now, but if I ever hunt in those woods again, it's going to be with a much bigger gun. So those were some pretty insane encounters, weren't they? If one stuck out to you, let me know which one it was down in the comments. If you have one of your own, not just from Wyoming, but in general, feel free to send it to me at the email in the description below. Also down in the description below are a PayPal and a Patreon if you would like to donate to the channel. And with that, I hope you like and subscribe and all that great stuff, and I'll put a couple more videos up here that may or may not be related, and we'll see if you want to watch those too. And with that, I think I'll see you in the next one. Thank you for pulling up a stump with me. Thank you for watching, and have a good week.